The sound of clinking glasses and polite laughter filled the extravagant ballroom, but Vincent Ellis could only focus on the weight of his rental tuxedo and the uncomfortable sensation that he didn't belong. He adjusted his bow tie for the fifth time in as many minutes, scanning the room for a familiar face among the sea of Washington, D.C. Elite. Daddy, can I have another one of those tiny sandwiches? 8-year-old Sophie tugged at his sleeve, her dark curls bouncing as she pointed toward a passing waiter. Vincent smiled down at his daughter, grateful for her presence. Of course, sweetheart. Just one more though, okay? We still have dinner later. As Sophie skipped off to intercept the waiter, Vincent sighed. He was only here because his old college roommate, now a junior congressman, had insisted he attend this charity gala. It'll be good for you to network, Derek had said. Besides, you need a night out. What Derek hadn't mentioned was that networking would involve standing awkwardly among D.C.'s wealthiest residents, while trying to hide the fact that he was a single father struggling to make ends meet. Vincent scanned the ornate room again. The crystal chandeliers alone probably cost more than his annual salary as a high school English teacher. He spotted Sophie carefully balancing her tiny sandwich as she made her way back to him, weaving through designer gowns and custom tuxedos. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Vincent turned to find a woman gesturing to the empty chair beside him. For a moment, he couldn't speak. She was striking dark auburn hair cascaded in soft waves past her shoulders, framing a face with intelligent green eyes and a warm smile. Her emerald dress complemented her fair complexion perfectly. "No, it's free," he finally managed, pulling the chair out for her. "I'm Vincent Ellis. Vivienne Everhart," she replied, her voice melodic and slightly husky. "Thank you. I needed to escape the crowd for a moment." Sophie returned with her prize, eyeing Vivienne curiously. "Who are you?" she asked bluntly. "Sophie," Vincent admonished gently. "That's not how we introduce ourselves." Vivienne laughed, the sound genuine and warm. "I don't mind." "I'm Vivienne," she said, extending her hand to Sophie as if she were an adult. "And you must be Sophie Ellis. I'm 8. My daddy teaches literature at Lincoln High School. He's really smart." She climbed onto the chair beside Vincent. "Are you smart too?" Vincent felt his cheeks warm. "Sophie, Miss Everhart doesn't want to be interrogated." "Actually, I love honest questions," Vivienne said, her eyes twinkling. "And yes, Sophie, I like to think I'm reasonably intelligent, though probably not as smart as your father if he teaches literature. I always struggled with Chaucer." Vincent raised an eyebrow. Most people name Shakespeare when trying to impress an English teacher. "I would never attempt to quote Shakespeare to an expert. Too risky." She smiled, a dimple appearing in her left cheek. "Besides, I've always found Middle English delightfully incomprehensible." "Miss Everhart, do you like chocolate cake?" Sophie interrupted, her priorities firmly established. "It's my absolute favorite," Vivienne answered solemnly. "Especially with raspberry filling." Sophie's eyes widened. "Mine too. Daddy makes me chocolate raspberry cake for my birthday every year." "You bake?" Vivienne asked Vincent, looking genuinely impressed. "I try," he admitted. "Single dad skills, I've become reasonably proficient at the basics." A shadow of compassion crossed Vivienne's face, but without the pity Vincent had grown accustomed to seeing. "That's admirable," she said simply. Before Vincent could respond, a waiter appeared with champagne. Vivienne declined, requesting water instead. Vincent did the same, conscious of his budget and the drive home. "Not drinking tonight?" he asked conversationally. "I never drink at these events," she confided. "Too many important conversations to remember in the morning." Vincent nodded, though he couldn't imagine what important conversations he might offer. "So, what brings you to a party like this?" he asked, genuinely curious about this woman who seemed both at ease in these surroundings and somehow separate from them. "Obligation," she answered with a wry smile. A friend insisted I needed to get out more." He's somewhere in this crowd, probably regretting inviting the high school teacher who's bringing down the net worth average. Vivienne laughed again, and Vincent found himself enchanted by the sound. "I doubt that very much. Teachers are the backbone of society. What do you teach specifically?" "American literature primarily, some creative writing. Any aspiring Hemingways or Fitzgeralds in your classes?" A few with potential, Vincent said, warming to the subject. There's one student, Malik, who has an incredible voice, raw talent. I'm trying to help him apply for scholarships. Sophie, growing bored with adult conversation, asked if she could go look at the dessert table. Vincent hesitated. I'll keep an eye on her from here, Vivienne offered. The table's just 15 feet away. Vincent nodded gratefully. As Sophie carefully made her way to the elaborate display of pastries, Vivienne turned back to him. So how did a literature teacher end up at Washington's most exclusive charity gala? Pure luck. My college roommate is Congressman Derek Sanchez. Recognition flashed in Vivienne's eyes. Derek. Of course, he's on the education committee. Good man. You know him. Our paths cross occasionally, she said vaguely. D.C. can be a small world. For the next hour, they talked easily. Vincent found himself telling Vivienne about his teaching, about raising Sophie alone since his wife died of cancer 4 years ago, about his passion for helping underprivileged students find opportunities through literature. She listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions that revealed genuine interest. In turn, she shared stories about growing up in Vermont, her love of hiking, and her work, which she described simply as consulting on sustainable business practices. She skillfully deflected most personal questions, but Vincent was too captivated by her intelligence and warmth to notice. Sophie returned periodically, drawn by the desserts, but staying to listen to Vivienne's stories about traveling to far-off places like Bhutan and Madagascar. When she described seeing lemurs in the wild, Sophie was enthralled. So their tails are longer than their bodies? Sophie asked, wide-eyed. Much longer, and they use them for balance as they jump between trees, like in the movie Madagascar. Similar, but real lemurs are even more fascinating. The evening was passing more pleasantly than Vincent could have imagined when a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit approached their table. Vivienne, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Senator Mackenzie is asking for you. The donation discussion, Vivienne's expression shifted subtly. Of course, Marcus, I'll be right there. As the man nodded and stepped away, she turned apologetically to Vincent. Duty calls, unfortunately. Of course, Vincent said, trying to hide his disappointment. It was wonderful talking with you. Vivienne hesitated, then reached into her small clutch and pulled out a business card. Perhaps we could continue our conversation another time. I'd love to hear more about your work with students. Vincent accepted the card, surprised and pleased. I'd like that. Goodbye, Sophie, Vivienne said, leaning down. It was a pleasure meeting you. Keep reading those adventure books. Bye, Miss Vivienne, Sophie waved enthusiastically. Will you come see our apartment sometime? Daddy makes really good spaghetti, too. Vincent felt his face flush, but Vivienne just smiled. I'd love that if your father doesn't mind. After she walked away, Vincent examined the business card. It was elegant but understated, with only her name, a phone number, and an email address. No company name or title. I like her daddy, Sophie declared. She's pretty and she knows about lemurs. High praise indeed, Vincent chuckled, tucking the card carefully into his wallet. Later that night, after putting Sophie to bed in their modest 2-bedroom apartment, Vincent found himself looking at Vivienne's card again. Gathering his courage, he sent a text. Thank you for making a charity gala bearable. This is Vincent Ellis, by the way. The English teacher with the lemur enthusiast daughter. To his surprise, she responded within minutes. The pleasure was all mine. Sophie is delightful, and her father isn't bad company either. Coffee sometime next week. 3 days later, Vincent met Vivienne at a small cafe near his school. She arrived wearing jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking no less stunning than she had in her evening gown. They talked for 2 hours, until Vincent reluctantly mentioned he needed to pick up Sophie from her after-school program. May I join you? Vivienne asked. If it's not an imposition, I promised Sophie I'd tell her more about Madagascar's wildlife. Vincent was surprised but pleased. She'd love that, but fair warning, our evening routine is far less glamorous than charity galas. Vivienne's smile was warm, perfect. Sophie was ecstatic to see Vivienne, proudly introducing her to her friends and teachers as my dad's friend who's been to Madagascar. Back at their apartment, Vincent apologized for the modest surroundings as he prepared a simple dinner of pasta and salad. "This is lovely," Vivienne insisted, helping Sophie set the table. "Much more comfortable than my place." "Where do you live?" Sophie asked. "Georgetown," Vivienne replied. "In an old townhouse that's too big for just me." "Do you have a swimming pool?" Sophie asked hopefully. Vivienne laughed. "No, but there's a community center nearby with one. Perhaps you and your dad could visit sometime." Over the next few weeks, Vivienne became a regular presence in their lives. She joined them for movie nights, helped Sophie with her science project, and even attended a parent-teacher potluck at Vincent's school. She fit seamlessly into their world, never commenting on their financial limitations and seeming genuinely content with their simple activities. Vincent found himself falling for her intelligence, kindness, and the way she treated Sophie with respect and affection. Still, there was something mysterious about her. She was often unavailable during business hours, sometimes disappeared for days on work trips, and remained vague about her professional life. When he dropped her off after evenings together, it was always at the corner of her street, never directly at her home. One evening, while Sophie was at a sleepover, Vincent and Vivienne enjoyed a rare dinner alone at a modest Italian restaurant. As they lingered over coffee, Vincent decided to address his concerns. "Vivienne, I need to ask you something," he began carefully. "These past weeks have been wonderful, but sometimes I feel like I'm only seeing part of your life. Is there something you're not telling me?" Vivienne's expression grew serious. "You're right, and you deserve honesty." She took a deep breath. "My work is complicated. I'm the CEO of Everhart Sustainable Industries." Vincent blinked. The name was familiar, a massive corporation known for revolutionary green technology. He'd seen their logo on buildings, products, even sponsoring PBS shows Sophie watched. "That's impressive," he managed, trying to process this information. "But why keep it secret? When people learn what I do, or more specifically, what I'm worth, everything changes. Suddenly, I'm not Vivienne anymore. I'm a wallet, a connection, a status symbol." She reached for his hand. "With you and Sophie, I'm just me. Do you know how rare that is?" Vincent's mind raced. He'd seen Everhart Industries in the news. They were valued at billions. The woman holding his hand across a checkered tablecloth at a neighborhood Italian restaurant was one of the wealthiest people in the country. "I understand if this changes things," Vivienne continued quietly, "but I hope it doesn't." Vincent studied her face, the same intelligent eyes, the same dimple when she smiled nervously. "You're still the woman who knows about lemurs and quotes Chaucer incorrectly," he said finally. "That's who Sophie and I care about." Relief washed over her face. "Thank you. But there's more you should know before this goes further. My life comes with complications, security concerns, public scrutiny, expectations. It's not always easy for people close to me." "Is that why you've been keeping me at arm's length from parts of your life?" She nodded. "I wanted to be sure before bringing you into that world. It can be overwhelming." Vincent squeezed her hand. "Vivienne, I'm falling in love with you, the person, not the CEO, but I need to know you trust me enough to let me see all sides of your life, just as you've seen mine." Tears glistened in her eyes. "I'm falling in love with you too, and I want to share everything with you if you're ready." The following weekend marked a turning point. Vivienne invited Vincent and Sophie to her home, a historic Georgetown townhouse that was elegant but surprisingly cozy. She introduced them to her staff not as employees but as the extended family they'd become. Maria, her housekeeper of 15 years, Eduardo, her driver and security, and Thomas, her personal assistant who'd been with her since she started her company. "You have a library bigger than our schools," Sophie exclaimed, spinning around the book-lined room. "And it needs more children's books," Vivienne laughed. "Perhaps you could help me select some." Over dinner, prepared by Vivienne herself, Maria taught me, but she refuses to let me cook for events. She explained more about her work, the clean energy innovations, the educational initiatives in developing countries, the scholarships her foundation provided. "Actually," she said hesitantly, "your student Malik, I looked into that scholarship program you mentioned. My foundation might be able to help." Vincent set down his fork. Vivienne, that's incredibly generous, but I don't want you to think I expect this isn't about us, she interrupted gently. It's about a talented student who deserves an opportunity. I'd have done the same if I'd heard about him from anyone else. After dinner, while Sophie explored the garden with Eduardo, who had grandchildren her age and a talent for spotting urban wildlife, Vincent and Vivienne sat on the terrace. Are you overwhelmed yet? She asked. A little, he admitted. But not in the way you might think. I'm just trying to reconcile the Vivienne I know with all this. They're the same person, she said quietly. This is just the backdrop, not who I am. I know that now, Vincent said, taking her hand. But I'm a high school teacher raising a daughter on a modest salary. Our worlds are very different. Different doesn't mean incompatible. Vivienne turned to face him fully. Vincent, money changes the scenery, not the heart. What matters is that we share the same values, the same vision of what makes life meaningful. Don't you think? In the months that followed, their relationship deepened as their worlds gradually merged. Vincent and Sophie became comfortable in Vivienne's world of board meetings and charity events, while Vivienne became a fixture at school functions and neighborhood barbecues. There were adjustments, security considerations, occasional paparazzi, the surprised reactions of Vincent's colleagues, but the core of their relationship remained unchanged. Sophie adapted with the resilience of childhood, equally excited about swimming in the pool at Vivienne's country house and building blanket forts in their apartment living room. As long as we're all together, it doesn't matter where we are, she declared wisely. 1 year after they met, Vincent proposed on the same terrace where they'd had their first honest conversation. He'd saved for months for a simple but elegant ring, refusing Vivienne's hints that family heirlooms were available. I want to do this my way, he'd insisted, teacher's salary and all. When he knelt before her, ring in hand, Vivienne's eyes filled with tears. Are you sure? She whispered. My life will always be complicated. I've never been more sure of anything, Vincent replied. Complex or simple, rich or poor, none of that matters as much as loving each other. Their wedding was a compromise, intimate but elegant, with only close friends and family in attendance. Sophie served as flower girl and best daughter, proudly holding both their rings until the exchange of vows. Derek, who took full credit for their meeting, delivered a toast that had everyone laughing. When I invited my old roommate to that gala, I thought he might make some useful connections. I never imagined he'd end up connecting with one of the most influential women in the country. Vincent, you've always overachieved. Afterward, Vivienne's foundation announced a major initiative to support arts and literature programs in underserved schools across the country, with Vincent appointed as educational advisor. Now we're colleagues too, she teased. Just promise our dinner conversations won't become board meetings, he replied. They settled into a rhythm that balanced both their worlds. They split their time between Vivienne's Georgetown home and Vincent's apartment, which he insisted on keeping so Sophie maintained stability and perspective. Eventually, they compromised by purchasing a comfortable but not ostentatious home midway between his school and her office. Vincent continued teaching, refusing special treatment, but gratefully accepting Vivienne's support for his students through official foundation channels. I fell in love with your passion for education, she reminded him when he hesitated to accept funding for a school writing center. Why would I want you to change that? Sophie blossomed with 2 loving parents, developing Vivienne's interest in science alongside Vincent's love of literature. When she announced at age 10 that she wanted to create sustainable technology that would help people tell their stories, neither parent was surprised. 2 years into their marriage, they welcomed twins, a boy and girl who inherited Vivienne's auburn hair and Vincent's thoughtful demeanor. The press briefly buzzed about the billionaire mom with teacher husband, but the novelty soon faded as more interesting scandals emerged. On their 5th anniversary, they returned to the charity gala where they'd first met. As they sat at the same table, now joined by a 12-year-old Sophie and their 3-year-old twins, Vincent smiled at his wife. Any regrets about sitting next to the awkward teacher that night? Vivienne's eyes sparkled with the same warmth that had first captivated him. Only that I didn't find you sooner. Sophie, now old enough to appreciate romance, sighed dramatically. You guys are still so cute it's almost embarrassing. Later that evening, as they danced beneath the same crystal chandeliers, Vincent reflected on the journey that had brought them here. You know, when I first saw your business card without a company name or title, I thought you might be hiding something. I was, Vivienne admitted, but not what you think. I was hiding from something, the loneliness of being seen for what I owned rather than who I was. She rested her head against his shoulder. You saw me from the very beginning, and you saw value in a high school teacher and single dad when others might have dismissed me. The best investment I ever made, she murmured against his chest. As the music played on, Vincent held his wife close, marveling at how fate had seated them together at a party 5 years ago, a struggling single father and a solitary billionaire, both seeking connection without knowing it. Their differences in wealth and status, which had seemed so significant at first, had faded into the background of a life built on shared values, mutual respect, and genuine love. In the years that followed, they faced challenges like any family, balancing careers and parenting, navigating public scrutiny, teaching their children to appreciate privilege without being defined by it. But through it all, they maintained the foundation established that first night, seeing each other clearly, valuing what truly mattered, and recognizing that the greatest fortune wasn't measured in dollars but in the richness of their shared life. On their 20th anniversary, surrounded by their children and closest friends, Vincent raised a glass to his wife. To Vivienne, who taught me that true wealth has nothing to do with money and everything to do with love. And to Vincent, she responded, her eyes still alight with the same spark that had drawn him in 2 decades earlier, who showed me that sometimes the richest life begins by sitting next to a stranger at a party. The room filled with applause, but for Vincent and Vivienne, the noise faded away as their eyes met in perfect understanding. In that moment, as in countless moments before, they were simply two people who had found in each other exactly what they needed. Not status or security, but a heart that recognized their true worth.